Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. It's Tim and Julie Harris with the Harris Real Estate University. Welcome to today's presentation, our Superstar interview, which happens every Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon on the East Coast. And it's my pleasure to introduce both Tim as well as our special guests, Grant and Gia. So over to you guys.
So Grant and Gia Freer are a couple that you guys are really going to enjoy hearing from today. And one of the things that I really like about both of them is that they have figured out how to balance the ways that you make money in this new real estate market. Now, this new real estate market isn't really that new. It's been around now for, 5 or 6 years? But they have a very typical Harris Real Estate University return to success story. Now, notice I didn't call it a success story because a success story would almost basically skip the ugly, gritty parts. But what they did is they have returned to success by, frankly, embracing the different revenue streams that this market has to offer that, frankly, the last market didn't have to offer. So there's a lot of exciting details, and I think what a lot of you are going to be paying very close attention to or be very interested in at a very high level is their BPO, really their BPO cash flow machine. They're doing a tremendous amount of BPOs, or really Grant, that's his focus. And he's going to tell you how he's doing it. He's going to tell you how many he's doing. Now, I was telling Grant and Gia yesterday, the one aspect of today's interview, which I know will be interesting to see the results of, are the skeptics, because a lot of you out there are still stuck in your minds believing that someone can't do high volume of BPOs. Someone can't make really good money off doing a high volume of BPOs. And as a result of that disbelief, you don't even try. And so that's one of the things we're going to really grind down on the details when we're speaking with Grant today. So as always with every Harris Real Estate University Superstar interview, you enter in your questions to the box that's on the left-hand side of your screen, and those will be the questions that I use when interviewing Grant and Gia. Now, I do have a long list of questions. If you want to see my questions and join along with me, the questions are posted, of course, on the blog, realestateinsidernews.com. So without any further delay, I'm going to welcome today's superstars, Grant and Gia Freer. So welcome to the call, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thank you for having us.
So we have a lot of ground to cover. It's our pleasure. We have a lot of ground to cover, so let's just jump right in. With the first question. Let them know where you sell real estate, and specifically if, obviously I'm gearing all these questions to helping you guys build your real estate practice, and so referrals. Let them know how they can get hold of you, send business, what areas you specialize in, all that good stuff.
Well, I guess I'll answer that one. We are located in Palm Beach County, Florida, South Florida. We work the northern portion of Broward County and a good portion of Palm Beach County. Our phone number is 561-395-8418, and you can always contact us at info@pbprealestate.com. That's info at P as in Peter, B as in boy, P as in Peter, realestate.com.
Gotcha. So how long, Grant, let me know here, how long have you guys, the two of you, sold real estate in this particular area? I mean, how long have you said to yourselves that making money from real estate, making money from BPOs in, West Palm Beach and Palm Beach is my primary focus? How long have you been in that place?
Well, Gia's been down here all of her life. Her father was a real estate developer, so she grew up in real estate. I think she was initially licensed in 2000, so she's been hardcore doing real estate and mortgages up to about 2007, for 12 years now. I came to real estate actually on the mortgage side, right just before the peak of the market. I had a mortgage company, and then as the market turned, I gravitated towards real estate. So I actually didn't start selling myself until 2008.
Well, what's more than that, we don't need to go into great detail, but you guys have been entrepreneurs at one form or another for virtually your entire adult lives. Grant, yesterday
Right.
You mentioned that you've been in a real estate business, you had an internet startup, and so you guys are really entrepreneurs. So as entrepreneurs, because that's at your heart what you truly are, why real estate and why now?
One of the things that's pretty compelling, and you touched on it, Tim, in your intro, is, and this was the inflection point that I think Gia and I found ourselves in as the market turned, is how do we reinvent ourselves with this new marketplace? All around us was disarray, there was uncertainty, people didn't know what they were going to do next. So how do you make sense of it all, and where do you start? So, my background being in accounting and being initially in food and beverage was how do I develop multiple streams of income? And that was something that you touched on right at the beginning of the call, Tim. And that's exactly what Gio and I have set out to do over the last 4 or 5 years, is developing multiple streams of income. So we're going to touch on that a little bit during this call. One of the areas was broker price opinions, and I'm going to get into a little bit more detail on that. Obviously, short sales, using past clients, both on the mortgage side and the real estate side, working our sphere of influence. But most important of all was making sure we had a nice brand out there and developing referral sources that could give us a constant stream of business. So these are the areas that we sort of targeted over the last 4 or 5 years.
Grant, you have a strange accent. Are you from Alabama?
Yeah, close.
Actually, Tennessee.
Is that a Southern Tennessee accent?
Yeah, right.
So, Grant's from England, in case anyone was curious. Just wanted to cover that basis. I'm sure those questions are coming in right now. So, Grant, you said multiple streams of income, and that was something that, as a business owner and as an entrepreneur, as you truly are, that was something that was just intuitive. You didn't actually have to think about that. You knew as a business owner you had to have multiple spokes, as we call it here at HREU. In real estate, your spokes are, so share with them. You already mentioned a few of them. So where do you guys make money? What are your specific spokes?
One of the things that I identified back in 2008 was broker price opinions. And broker price opinions is a core area of my business in particular because, one of the questions that you've asked me before, Tim, is, what's our number? What does it take for me to cover all of my overhead? And I actually cover it all with broker price opinions, which means everything that I produce on the regular commission side allows me to be able to either expand the business, reinvest, or do other things with. So broker price opinions is literally a core element of the business. But it actually leads to other things. I mean, it has so many intangibles with it. For example, I can convert BPOs. Now, some people will say, well, isn't that a conflict? If you're being given an order to do an independent opinion value, how do you convert a BPO? Well, it's actually quite simple. Because if the BPO is not listed, if it's a property that's not actually listed on the MLS, but you're asked to do an interior, chances are it's either for a deed in lieu of foreclosure or it's for a loan modification. And that's just a great way to be able to convert what is a $75 BPO into potentially thousands of dollars worth of real estate commission, plus the referrals that you will get from that as well.
Grant, don't go over that point. So, I mean, that's such a key point. And that's the beauty. I mean, Julie, are you there? You're still on, right?
Yes, I am, and yes, I know what you're going to say. BPOs are a gift from the real estate gods.
That's
really
right.
Are.
I mean, and that's the thing that a lot of agents don't really understand about, still are struggling with. They think their only sources of income have to be from working with buyers or sellers. And, one of the advantages of this market is that you can build, and Grant just said it, and I hope everyone out there is paying attention, you can rebuild create your own comeback story with creating a financial floor and create financial stability through BPOs. Now, the thing is, BPOs, when you first get started, they take a lot of time. They're hard. It's a new skill you have to learn. But once you learn it, it becomes very systematic, I don't know what you want to call it other than basically almost boring because it becomes so easy. It's predictable. It's duplicatable. But here's the beauty of it, and Grant just hit it on all cylinders. BPOs really are, what they really truly are, and how you should think of them as listing leads. That's what they are. You ask any of the Harris Real Estate University top-producing agents about how they think of BPOs, they love them. You go out to a BPO, Grant, let's say, for example, and the owner's still there. How do you basically bridge that conversation from here, you're just there to do your BPO, to actually talking with them about potentially selling the house? How does that work?
It's actually a lot easier than most people realize because essentially all of us have to engage a consumer, whether it's on the buy side or the sell side, if we're actually going to make any money. So you're just using your natural personality and your knowledge of the market and your understanding of what short sales are all about and what the distressed market is about to be able to educate the person that you're visiting. And now the reason you've been called there is because they're actually already in distress. So you already know that walking through the door. So, the first question that you could ask is, what are you trying to do with your bank? It's a very straightforward question to ask. That's ultimately the reason why you're walking in there. And you'd be surprised at the information that they give you. I've had plenty of people say, I've been offered money to do a deed in lieu of foreclosure, or I'm doing a deed in lieu of foreclosure. And then the next question, of course, is, do you have an attorney? Have you spoken to anybody about the differences between a foreclosure and a short sale? Has anybody explained that to you? And this is a conversation that you can now get into with this person that you've just met. And you'd be surprised where it takes you. I'm going to share a little story if I can, Tim. I got asked to do one about 18 months ago in a wonderful, gorgeous gated community in Boynton Beach called Cobblestone Creek. Now, Cobblestone Creek was actually built by two different developers. On one side, it was full of what's called Chinese drywall, which is a latent defect that has a very, very expensive remediation cost associated with it. We got asked to go do an interior broker price opinion for a couple, one of which was a doctor looking to do a deed in lieu of foreclosure and literally hand it back to the bank. We befriended them, got talking to them. They were convinced that a short sale was actually the way to go. And then after I'd already completed the BPO, they gave me a call and said, can we do the short sale instead? And I said, absolutely. And there we go. And from that one interior BPO that was a deed in lieu, not only did we do that short sale, and we actually got it closed in about 45 days. It was actually a pretty quick one with one loan. But then we also got 4 referrals in that development, all with the same condition. So we actually got a reputation for being able to do short sales that have Chinese drywall. And you'd be surprised where that takes you.
I'm trying to see what that ad looks like in my mind. The short sale Chinese drywall experts. That's really the bottom line, though. Yeah, exactly right. But so let's be clear here. The reason that you are getting the referrals and the reason that you got the business in the first place, Grant, is because you knew how to solve a problem, right? You knew how to explain to folks the difference. I mean, a lot of people, you guys run into you both must experience this every day. A lot of people don't understand the ramifications of a foreclosure or a deed in lieu, which in essence the ramifications credit-wise, the ability to purchase again, the time frames, they're identical versus a short sale. A short sale anymore is such the appealing alternative that is it really that difficult of a conversation to take someone who's thinking about doing a deed in lieu or basically is on the foreclosure path? Is it really that difficult to make them open their minds to the idea of doing a short sale and saving their credit and maybe even putting them back in the saddle to buy a house in 24 months again? And how does that work, Grant? Can you give us a little bit more details on that? Or either one of you, really. I'm sure you both are in that position often. Yeah,
Gia will probably jump right into it, actually, because she deals with it a lot more often than I do.
Well, usually with regard to talking to these folks and letting them know, their choices, 9 times out of 10, once they get educated, they're really quick to say, you know what, I'm jumping on the short sale bandwagon. I don't think I want to give the keys back. I want my deficiency released. I want to be able to feel that freedom and be able to buy a property in, 2 years, 3 years, or depending on their circumstances. I mean, we had one client who had to short a property because her husband passed away in the property. Right. And within 12 to 18 months, she bought another property because she was able to do it. All her other bills were paid. That was her only noose. When we removed the noose, she was able to buy no problem. So most people, when you educate them and you give them all the information that they need, they will actually go ahead and jump on that short sale bandwagon because it's the best option for them.
Gia, do you find that knowledge and you and Grant's high level of knowledge about really how the business works nowadays, all the rules have basically changed. Do you find that knowledge to be a competitive advantage to you in your marketplace?
Yes, we really, really do. I mean, there have been times where we're actually doing a BPO and we actually have to educate the listing agent. They don't even know some of the things that they need to actually do to be proactive to get the short sale done. We've actually had agents come to us and say, will you just take the listing and split the commission with us? And we've said, yeah, absolutely, we'll get it done, and we've been able to close out on the deals. But that means they had to give us control and give us the reins of the transaction, which they've had no problem doing because their focus is, you know what, I don't have the ability or the knowledge in this area. These people do. I'd rather get something rather than nothing. So, yes, we find that the advantage of having that knowledge is significant to being, sitting back and not getting any information on it.
Well, I'm thinking about some of our other top producers in your marketplace, our coaches, for example, the McClintocks, and then Rodney, Rodney Forbes. They're one of the things that they really are enjoying the benefits of. It's just exactly what Grant just said. When you're able to solve a problem at a high level, you really attract business to you faster than you think. And I think what a lot of realtors do is they take for granted, or I don't even really know what the words would be, but they don't understand the power of being able to solve problems like what you guys just effortlessly described, right? How to explain to someone that if they do a short sale, these are the advantages versus allowing it to go back to the bank. And Gia, we've had plenty of agents telling us, basically following the instructions that we gave them, how to get their previous owners that have done short sales to purchase a house right away. I mean, there's programs through the VA that, depending on your credit, you could buy immediately following a short sale
Correct.
with virtually nothing down. So
Correct.
There's plenty of things out there. That's power. Having that information is power. It's so different. Gia, you sold during the bubble. You guys both were in the market then. And back then it was basically like a constant beauty contest, wasn't it? It wasn't even, knowledge was secondary, wasn't it? Hello? Hello? Julie, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you
Did
now.
I miss?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah,
I said
all
all you needed to do was be able to put a sign in the ground and smile nicely, and the deal was done.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It was a beauty contest, really, at the essence of it. Grant,
Yep.
We had a question. By the way, you guys can answer questions at any time, or ask questions at any time. Send them into the box on your webinar screen, and I will use those questions. So, I forgot to finish up the BPO aspect with Grant. Grant, how many BPOs are you guys doing per year? And how did you come about, and then, Gia, I want to switch to you talking specifically about what you're doing. But, Grant, tell me specifically about your BPO machine and just hit it with all the high numbers and see if that spawns any other questions, and if it does, we'll go back.
And remind me, Tim, at the end, I've actually got a few takeaways for people that they can literally do some actionable things with on the BPO side right at the end.
Good.
I started doing BPOs back in 2008. I now have 15 vendors that I focus on that send us business on a regular basis. This year we'll probably do 1,500 units, which is down a little bit from what I'm accustomed to. Normally it's 1,800 to 2,000 units a year. And as I say, BPOs cover my entire nut. So, and that's business as well as on the personal side. So it really gives you that freedom to be able to take what you're doing on the regular side and be able to either reinvest it, as I've said before, and do some other things and expand your operation. So on the BPO side, I would be looking to do, on average, about 150 to 200 units a month on a continual basis. And then as I start hitting my targets, I can then begin to scale back and focus on, more regular transactions that are already in the pipeline. So I get that flexibility. Now, I help myself because I'm automated. Now, I'm not talking about auto-accept software, which a lot of companies frown upon. I'm actually talking about auto-fill software. And this might be a can of worms for some people, but let me quickly explain what it is. Auto-fill software literally saves you time. And again, we're talking about problem solving, making yourself more efficient and more productive. So auto-fill software essentially allows you to select your comps. Once you've done that, it will populate them into the typical vendor forms. You just run the macros. And it does save you a significant amount of time. So when you're doing the sort of BPO volume that I'm doing, you get to be that much more productive. So autofill software is definitely something that I would recommend. You also want to try and find vendors that pay promptly, 2 to 4 weeks, that also have preferred programs that will actually assign units to you where you're not necessarily competing. So a couple of tips out there for everybody is really nail your turnaround times. Try and get those BPOs in prior to that due time, because all of these vendors are tracking them. Make sure that your quality control response times are very good and that you have good relations with your vendors as well, because that's going to help you going forward to get more units. The other thing that I would recommend is those BPO vendors that do it by zip code. Try expanding your coverage area and getting more business that way. You'd be surprised how many more units you get.
And so something else for everyone to remember, BPOs are the traditional way to go about taking REOs, but what Grant and Gia have done is they've realized that BPOs are a fantastic way to have consistent income. Now, there's going to be a lot of questions that are coming in about how how long it took you to gear up to that level, and so let's just jump in, just ask those questions real poignantly. Do you have any assistance, or are you doing all the picture taking and the auto-filling and all the rest of it yourself?
Living solo. So I managed to do all of that volume and still have some sanity. But yes, it is taxing and it's demanding, but yes, it can be done. But you have to be organized and you have to be systematic. So, for example, because I get them in volume, I will MapQuest out an entire route, make sure it's the most efficient way of getting through the route. I already have a system for populating the photos in. I use Dropbox to allow me to have a streamlined storage system. And, of course, I have the autofill software. So, again, it's just using systems, using technology that's already there for the BPO business and making it work for you.
So when you get a BPO order, go ahead, Gia. What did you say, Gia? I'm sorry?
I said, and getting a hybrid car, because we actually traded in our car for a hybrid that does 43 miles to the gallon, and it works great. Well,
so again, you guys are really making a good point here too. You have thought about this whole BPO aspect as a real business, all the way down to the fact that, if gas continues to go up per gallon, the BPOs are going to become less profitable. And believe it or not, I know we have some calls into customer service where agents are saying they can't make the numbers work. How about using a little common sense and getting something that's a little bit more fuel efficient? How long, Grant, did it take you guys to really ramp up to doing that level? So, if someone had to think about this in terms of stages, so you guys are making right around $80,000 a year from BPOs. Is that correct?
Correct.
And so
correct.
How long did it take for you to get up?
That's actually down, Tim, from where I was at the peak probably in 2010, where I was actually doing six figures just on BPO units.
Okay. Well, we have some folks that are, I'm thinking of one guy in Detroit who's got his whole family helping him do BPOs. I don't remember his exact number, but I think it was like $20,000 a month in just BPOs. So how long did it take for you to ramp up to doing BPOs at that level? Really think back to when you were first asked to do a BPO to where you are today. What would someone expect if they really focused in on it in terms of the time it would take for them to learn the process and get really efficient at it?
It's a great question. There's a lot more competition now than there was when we first started, or I first started back in 2008. And I know that there's many agents that have been doing BPOs for a lot longer, but I'm just going to talk about my experience. I signed up with as many companies as I could find out there on the Internet, and there's plenty of resources for that to be able to find all of the companies. Sign up with everybody. Make sure that you've got an E&O, or your broker's got E&O policy in effect. And be patient. I'm going to throw a few company names out there of companies that are doing large units right now or have large units to be able to send to brokers right now. That's a great place to start. And if it's all right with you, Tim and Julie, I'm going to just throw 3 or 4 names out, if I can.
Sure.
eMortgage Logic was one of the companies that gave me my start. I used to do huge numbers with them. I don't do as much now because they dropped their prices. But that's a great place to start, eMortgage Logic. They do have a preferred partner program. So for those that are already working with eMortgage Logic, speak to your coordinator, see if your scores are good enough to get into their preferred partner program, because that will lead to assignment of units and actually a slightly higher price point as well on your BPOs. CoreLogic is another one that I want to throw out there, as well as Clear Capital. And the one right now that's doing some great numbers is it's called SAM, Specialized Asset Management. They run on they use the Quandus platform. They've got some great volume right now. So that's 4 companies that I would definitely recommend to those people that aren't even doing BPOs and would like to get into it right now.
Julie, you wanted to say something about the BPO cash flow class. Are you there?
Well, yeah, and, it's interesting. I think that if someone had asked us, 5 or 6 years ago if we'd be teaching a BPO class, we would say, huh? But, the market has so demanded that, and these guys are great examples of what you can do. So we created a couple of years ago a class called BPO Cash Flow that is specifically about everything that Grant and Gia are talking about. So there's lots of questions over the webinar. How do I get started? How do I demystify the process? Super easy. Sign up for our BPO Cash Flow class. We have a great coach, Rodney Forbes, does BPOs himself, has REOs himself, and it is exclusively about BPOs. We don't talk about anything else. We talk about what companies to sign up for, how to make your company very efficient so that you can do the kind of volume that Grant and Gia are talking about. Back to you guys.
Well, and the real bottom line with BPOs, and again, this is one of the reasons I admire these guys, is because they really have their heads screwed on straight about this, is that BPOs do provide that consistent cash flow. I mean, if we're being honest, most realtors' business, it's not about cash flow, it's about cash spurts, right? A closing here and there. And then what happens is basically in between the closings, you essentially have financial strains. And never again does that really have to happen as long as you're willing to put in consistent work. You can figure out exactly how many BPOs you have to do. It's not difficult. Take how much money you spend per month, divide it by probably realistically what, Grant, probably about $50 is the average now?
We're down to about 52 and a half is where we're at. But yeah, I mean, if you work to 50, that should give you a nice target. And, I'm all about setting targets on a weekly, monthly, and an annual basis because that gives you something to shoot for. It gives you that incentive every day. And I'm sure that's something that you've talked about before, but that's definitely the way to do it.
Well, and then if you scale this out, though, the bottom line is there's a lot of realtors, if we're being honest here, who will make more than enough money to cover all their personal overhead from just doing BPOs. And there's a lot of questions about how do you get paid? Does your broker take a split? I'll answer all those questions for you. Generally speaking, the brokers will just tell you to have the checks mailed directly to you because it's not a part of a real estate transaction. The BPO checks will literally show up in your mailbox or your mailbox at work, however you wanted to do it, and there's no split that's taken. So everyone listening to this call, and I don't care if you're a top producer, as so many of you are, or if you're someone that's just getting started in the real estate business, please listen to Gia and Grant and Tim and Julie Harris. You have to do BPOs. BPOs makes you, frankly, as Gia said, gives you such a high level of market knowledge because you learn the market backwards and forwards. You get opportunities to list other houses because every single, and these guys are so smart to do it this way, every single BPO opportunity, what it really truly is a listing lead. That's how they think of it. And then, heck, you get paid for going on listing leads. You get paid for going on appointments. BPOs are a no-brainer, and it does not take that much effort. Autofill software is something we suggest. It doesn't take that much effort once you get started. Now, when you get started, it's going to feel like a big learning curve because let's be honest, this is really, at some point, this is really grinding it out work, as most JOBs can be. Sometimes it's not exciting. It's not glamorous. But, Grant, you probably can go out most of your day when you're doing these BPOs and have kind of your brain in neutral because you've done so many. You really don't have to think about it. Is that about right?
That really is right. Now, I took it to another level. You know those police stands that are in all of the cruisers? I actually went and got myself one of those. And I actually have my laptop on the stand just like all of the law enforcement people. And I'm actually on Skype with Gia in the office, in the car, all day long on a hotspot connection from my iPhone. So, if an order comes in from a vendor that's a rush, I can immediately go and do it. If there's an explanation of value that a vendor needs, I'm right there for Gia to be able to respond accordingly. And it just gives you that, I feel like I'm in the office even though I'm actually out on the road doing BPOs. So it works very well.
And once you get past doing the BPOs and once you get a high enough rating, guys, what will happen is they'll send you direct assignments. I know when I saw you guys a couple weeks ago, you had just gotten assigned to 100 BPOs right before that week. Am I remembering correctly, Gia? Wasn't that the number?
That's correct. We had received 100 orders, and we had to tell them we couldn't take any of them, so they had to distribute it amongst other agents that weren't preferred partners because we weren't going to be available.
Preferred partners, that's the key, and we'll show you guys how to do that. If you're not being preferred, if you don't know what that means, right now when you get started doing BPOs, most times you're going to have to actually compete for the assignment, or as Grant calls it, I think very business-like, which I appreciate, the unit. So once you get that assignment, you have to do quite a few of them at a high level, and many agents don't realize that you can actually have those direct assigned to you. So if you're interested in the BPO cash flow class, call 866-422-9497, and again, it is a high level just focusing on BPO cash flow. Gia, you sold real estate in the bubble. The real estate market shifted under your feet like it did everyone else. You guys were in one of the hardest hit markets in terms of depreciation. How long did it take for you and Grant to kind of shift back to realizing that this market's not about lack, it's about opportunity?
Oh, I think back in 2008 when Grant started the BPO side, we realized we have an opportunity here. We just got to get back on our feet. And I think the fact that we were able to reinvent ourselves, especially, on Grant's end with the BPOs, afforded us the education, and we wound up self-educating based on doing the BPOs and learning what was going on in the marketplace, that we were able to take that negative of the market downturn and making a positive out of it. We took the lemons and made the lemonade. So I think it started in 2008 and it gradually increased through 2010, 2011 in trying to make those opportunities work for us, and thankfully they did.
Well, Gia, there's still agents out there. Gia, there's still agents out there. They haven't crossed that bridge yet, the bridge that you guys have successfully crossed. They're still not emotionally committed to the fact that the market's not going to shift back and that they're going to have to, most times in markets like yours, they're going to have to deal with people that have some sort of financial hardship. How can you coach or give advice to the agents out there that really are having an emotional issue with understanding that that's the opportunity that this market presents? So before it was order taking, really, and now it's different.
Correct.
So help them out.
Well, I think part of the big thing that you keep using the word emotion is that you have to take a step back and take the emotion out of it and look at the bigger picture and stop thinking, butterflies and balloons. You've got to really go back and say, okay, guys, this is the nitty-gritty of what's going on in our marketplace. And go out and educate yourself. Read obviously blogs like yours or things like DS News or things to help you figure out what's going on in your marketplace so that you're not, thinking that it's still, hunky-dory, because there are a lot of places that still haven't been hit fully. In other words, there's still going to be some declines, and then there are other places that are rebounding and others that are leveling off. So you really have to know your marketplace and take the emotion out of it and really focus on what's going on.
Gia, your cell phone's a little sketchy. If there's any way you could get closer to someplace where the reception will be a little bit better, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm going to try it. I'm going to take a walk. That's okay. Take a walk.
Okay, no problem. You walk and talk, too, so do I.
I walk
I can't
and talk,
sit and talk.
Exactly. Sorry.
No problem. Yeah, that's what I suspected. So, here's the interesting thing about where you live. Where you live, there's a lot of really expensive real estate. And so there's a real sort of like two markets, almost two worlds. There's normal price homes and there's really expensive homes. And you guys are in a position where obviously you're doing a lot of BPOs, you're building your volume up, you're making fantastic money. Where are the opportunities for you right now? As you look at the whole West Palm Beach and North Dade County and all that, where do you focus your mind? Where is it that you see the greatest opportunity for you in a market as diverse as yours?
Well, I have to be honest. I was going to jump in really quick, Grant. What I was going to say is you'd be surprised how many high-end luxury short sales there are, people that are on the higher-end homes, and they need help shorting their properties. That's an opportunity that we're starting to see.
Yeah, and, that's something, by the way, just everyone out there that's listening, that we started seeing in California a few years ago, and that's the reason we have the luxury distressed property designation, because of the simple fact that those higher-end folks, they definitely they want to do short sales, but they want to do them more strategically. So talking about strategic short sales, that's still amazing to me, a taboo topic in real estate. Tell us about that. How do you have that conversation with someone who doesn't have a hardship, but really is trying to make the smartest financial move for themselves and their family? How do you bridge that conversation?
Grant, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I'm going to share another story if I can, Tim, because I think it's very relevant, and I'm sure it will resonate with everybody on the call. Strategic defaults is a wonderful area of opportunity. We had a client last year, orthopedic surgeon, that owned an investment property in a gorgeous gated community in central Boca Raton. All the palm trees and the lake view and the pool, et cetera, et cetera. He had it rented for 3.5 years. He had educated himself. So you talk about savvy consumers, especially on the higher end. He'd already educated himself that he could do a short sale even if it meant him coming with cash to the table to get the full deficiency release. And that's exactly what we did for him. His agent wasn't that familiar with short sales. We ended up picking up the listing, giving her a nice referral fee, And his bank turned around and said, if you give us $35,000 or $30,000, we'll give you the full deficiency release on the remaining balance. And that's exactly what he did. And the word of mouth from that will lead to, again, additional referrals. So, again, Gia touched on it. It's about re-educating ourselves. Nobody expected this market to come. It's here. It's not going to go away, certainly in our marketplace. We're looking at another 4 or 5 years of this marketplace. So, for us, it's a wonderful opportunity if we can continue to separate ourselves from, our fellow agents around us. So, that's definitely something that I would encourage, is not just learning about short sales if you're not familiar with it, but actually taking it to another level and looking in terms of strategic default and making that business decision. And ultimately, for everybody, whether you've got a gorgeous mansion or, just middle class, you find yourself upside down, it becomes a business decision anyway, and that's essentially what strategic default is. It's a business decision for the family. I mean, you cannot afford to continue the way things are. So, again, as Gia said, keep reinventing yourself, keep learning.
Gia, how difficult is it for you on an ongoing basis to deal with the emotions of some of these owners? Because some of these owners, they're still stuck in the bubble in terms of their thinking. How do you do that?
Very carefully. You have to be very compassionate. You have to be able to explain to them that they're not alone. And Grant, I hope you don't mind, I'm going to share this. Back in 2008, 2009,
Gia?
Yeah,
Gia,
yeah.
Go back to where you were a second ago on your cell phone because the reception was better. Grant, you want to chime in? Grant?
No, I lost him. Hang on.
Okay, there we go. Okay, I can hear you.
Okay. Back in 2008, what happened was we had a downturn in the marketplace, and Grant and I actually did experience a short sale of our own. So one of the things that actually was beneficial to our clients is being able to express to them that we've been there, we've done that, and we know exactly what they're going through. So they don't feel like somebody who doesn't have a clue, their emotions, their financial decisions that they need to make. We were there, we've done that.
Well, so you basically have had so many conversations over a period of time about distress and how to get rid of the properties. So what's happening is you're building from that momentum because you've been able to counsel people over the past few years. Those people are coming back around to you and realizing that you guys can solve the problem. And that's what you're describing, I think.
Correct.
Julie, did you have a comment?
Well, I'm just reading some of the questions here, and you guys are covering so much ground. We're getting a lot of questions. Many students are kind of running into this situation where they go to sign up for BPO companies, and the BPO companies want some money up front. So one of the things that we talked about in the BPO cash flow class is we advise our students, you don't have to pay to work. What's your experience been? Have you been able to handle as many companies as you're talking about without having to shell out all of this extra money every month that kind of intimidates students when they go to investigate this?
Well, I can tell you right now, Grant doesn't pay a single cent for any of the companies for doing BPOs, period. If you have to pay, run away. That's my opinion, or that's his opinion.
I like that even better. That's good.
I like that even better.
We're going to borrow that.
That's fine. You can have it.
Thank you for that. So everybody on the webinar, you should be writing that down and posting it in your office. If you have to pay, run away. There you go. You absolutely do not have to pay companies to do BPOs. Go ahead.
But there are, I think, what is it, Old Republic is probably the only exception to that, and that might not, Julie, is that still accurate?
Yeah, and, they have plenty of work, and it's not that expensive, but 99% of the time you don't need to be paying to do that. Remember, it's supposed to be the other way around. You're getting paid for your work, that's it. And, so I agree with Gia on that one.
So, Gia, let's shift towards focusing specifically on your short sale listing opportunities. Let's talk about what are your primary short sale listing lead generators. We talked about the fact that BPOs are a great source for you. Grant touched on a few other things. But if you could only do 3 things in your real estate business to generate listing leads, what would those be?
Going back into my filing cabinet and touching my sphere of influence. Remember, I had a mortgage license for a long time, and I had originated a lot of loans, and that is a huge resource for us. And as a matter of fact, Grant and I were talking about moving the car out of the garage this weekend and pulling some of those extra files out that are still in the cabinet that we need to actually touch, and communicate with those homeowners. That, for us, is a big source. We actually have partnered up with a mortgage broker who refers a lot of leads to us from the short sale perspective from some of her past clients that need help. So that's another source. We've actually also have a partnership, not a partnership, but more of a friendship with a few investment bankers who refer their high-end clients to us as well. And funny enough, some of their high-end clients need to do strategic short sales. So we get that as well.
Well, so need to do or want to do. They're making the financial decision, and it's a different kind of seller. It's a higher-end seller. Just so everyone's clear on this, because I know strategic short sales, you guys know this too. Strategic short sales are like a real estate taboo. We're not supposed to talk about that. Woo, it's a secret. But the fact is it's happening all around us. And, as Gia and Grant are discovering, and if they discovered in the most expensive neighborhoods around the country, people are doing strategic defaults. It just doesn't get talked about. It's just another house for sale. And how the transaction gets settled, well, it's through a short sale. Now, there are different rules, and not really rules necessarily, but there's different strategies for negotiating a seller who has assets versus a seller who's legitimately, out of money. So you have to learn these things if you want to really tap into all the opportunities that this market has to offer. So those are great sources. How do you, for example, when you get a lead, tell us about your process for lead follow-up. So let's say a lead shows up in your voicemail while we're on this interview today. Tell us about the process you go through with the seller determining what path is best for them.
Well, first I call them straight back and find out exactly what it is that they're looking to accomplish. Are they looking to short the property? Do they have cash to come to closing? Do they, what position are they in? What have they been offered from the lender? Sometimes the lenders send them documentation and say, if you do this, we'll do this. We need to actually determine how many loans are on the property, what their circumstances are. There are times, as much as I hate to say this, where a deed in lieu for the seller is actually a better option if the deficiency is going to be released and, there are certain things that play in their favor to do that. 9 times out of 10, though, it's not always that way. But we actually do interview them. We do find out the background information. It takes me about, and I usually tell them, give me 24 to 48 hours to get back with you with regard to what we need to do if it's a little more complex. We do the research through the court records to see where they are as well. When was the lis pendens filed? When, are they in a foreclosure situation where it's getting ready to go to auction, at which point I may or may not be able to help. We do the research first so that we know if it's beneficial to us and to them to get the deal done.
Okay, good. All right. Grant, are you back? I think I hear wind noise.
Yes, I am.
Okay,
I think you walked outside.
Right. Okay, no problem. I know. That's the problem with doing it on cell phones. But when we're interviewing guys like you and you're so busy, I'll take the interview any way I can get it, even if it means that we don't have the best reception. That's fine with me. So, Gia, as you're dealing with these short sales, as you're dealing with all these different opportunities as sellers in front of you, one of the typical questions that we get a lot from agents are and you're in one of the states that's notorious for this, a slow process time between really when someone misses a payment to where they're actually, some of these sellers, they aren't motivated until there's literally a sheriff knocking on their door. How do you counsel folks when they're thinking that a loan mod, they're going through all the processes. A loan mod might be the best thing for them, but statistically, depending on their situation, How do you go from basically taking someone in their current state of mind about all the confusion in the marketplace to understanding it's a counseling process, but what are the specific obstacles? What are the biggest challenges that you have as you're going through the counseling process with these owners? Either one of you.
Denial. They're denying the fact that they have to move out of their house. That's the biggest obstacle that we find. I don't want to leave this house. I've put all this money into this house. This is my house. They can't take it away from me. I don't want to have to do this. Why isn't the bank working with me? And they have that sense of, I'm in denial. And I think that's our biggest obstacle that we have to face when we counsel these folks, because we have to let them know, listen, you're not alone, but you're going to have to come to the reality of the fact that you are going to have to move, or the bank is going to take the house and you're going to be forced to move, at least as a short sale, you have control of when you're going to move, rather than the bank having control of when you're going to move. So I think our biggest obstacle is the denial end of it, and that part of the emotion.
So the denial in terms of basically the fact that the game has already been played, the cards have already been dealt, and they are going to have to leave the house in one form or another. So
Correct.
the denial of the loan mod options out there for them, a lot of these guys, they just don't qualify, and they don't understand all the different. Well, you had to become somewhat of an expert on what loan modification programs out there work and which don't, but you guys don't do loan modifications, obviously, correct?
No, we don't. Most of the times, the people that come to us have already been denied of a loan mod, and they're desperate, and they say they won't modify our loan. Can you help? And at that point, we usually can.
Right. So, when you're dealing with an owner, how do you decide which owners you're going to actually take the listings from? Are there some that you just turn away, and why? Hello?
Oh, dear. Here we go again. We actually had one case where the owner of the property was an attorney, and he actually pissed off the bank, literally. He got very upset in the foreclosure process, and he turned around and asked us to list the property. We had a cash buyer for it, and we told him we didn't think this was going to fly. We told him we thought he was going to lose the house to foreclosure. And the bank, we had a full price cash offer, everything exactly where the bank would have taken it. They declined it because they didn't like him. So that was an instance where we told them straight out we couldn't do it. They were upset with him, and they said, no, we're declining it. And the bank somebody else bought the property out from the buyer that wanted it. They got outbid.
So what I'm hearing you describe basically is difficult sellers that aren't willing to take direction, sellers that maybe have unrealistic. Well, you know what? You didn't say that. You actually said a seller that basically had already burned a bridge with this bank to begin with.
Correct.
But difficult, emotionally distraught sellers, is that something that you'll deal with, or are those sellers those are something that you don't deal with? Give us an idea. What are your minimum standards in terms of a listing you'll take? Or am I hearing you say anyone that has to sell, that's motivated to sell, you're taking the listing regardless? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes and no. I have no problem taking an emotional seller. I do have a problem taking an emotional abusive seller, a seller who's actually going to turn and blame me for the marketplace when I had no control over it. That I won't take. I have no problem taking any kind of seller that, emotional or not, but it understands the reasons by which they have to play this game. As long as they're not blaming me for the circumstances that they find themselves in, which is pretty much, not my fault. There are also cases where they're too far down in this foreclosure process because they did not come to us in a timely manner. That we can't help them, and we actually do have to turn them away because they're way past the point of return. Where
in Florida is that point?
It's not at the Liz pendant. It's actually when they start filing for the final judgment comes in, and they're already at an auction stage.
Right, and so the banks now everything we're talking about, guys, pretty much applies to every single state. There's very few things that they've said that are specific to just Florida. In California, one of the advantages that all the agents there have, and I'm sure that you guys would love this in Florida too, is they've essentially removed the threat of a deficiency judgment. There was a law that passed that basically said was purchase money or non-purchase money on a single-family residence that you pretty much don't have to worry about a deficiency judgment. Well, that's an interesting question, actually. How often are you actually finding that nowadays in a state where the banks can go after a deficiency judgment that they're even threatening to?
Well, most of the short sales that we're doing have had the deficiencies released, so we're not seeing that they're actually demanding that the deficiency, not be released so that they can go after them at a later date. Right now, we're seeing personally with the ones that we're doing the deficiency currently being released.
And so they're not, as far as getting it removed from the final letter, is that even a point of contention, really, getting the deficiency language off the final agreement?
No, the deficiency on the short sale letter, we're actually seeing that it's that the deficiency is being released, that they're not coming back to the homeowner for the monies. That's what we're seeing in the letter.
Right. Let's talk about, so everyone clear out there about what's become of deficiencies, and the answer is basically, there's a big fear, and I know you guys know about this a couple of years ago, that the banks were all going to start going after owners, and we've seen just the opposite. So let's talk about specifically cash at closing. There's a lot of, a lot of stories out there, and I know a lot of our students are experiencing. Well, I have an agent actually who got their seller almost $60,000 to do a short sale. The bank, that's what they actually paid him to do the short sale. In Florida, what kinds of amounts are you seeing that the bank's willing to pay to get an owner to do a short sale?
One right now, and they're actually getting the max from one of the lenders, which is $20,000 to do the short sale, to move out of their property. And it was under the Bank of America Florida incentive, where it was 5% of the unpaid principal balance up to $20,000. They qualified under HAFA and the Florida incentive, and they maxed out at the 20, and that's what they're going to be walking away with, cash at closing.
So when you're talking to a seller, Gia, and this is someone that's basically thinking their only alternative is a deed in lieu or an actual foreclosure, and you're going in there and saying, well, just so everyone's clear, again, I always have to think in my mind that, Gia, Grant, and Julie, we all have to kind of make sure we're providing all the detail, assuming that the realtors out there's at least a few that don't know anything about short sales. The fact is, guys, if they do a deed in lieu or foreclosure, essentially it's treated the same. And in states like Florida, the deficiency language, the banks could hypothetically, after the house were to sell at auction, could go after the owner for the difference between what the house sold for and the mortgage balance. That's called a deficiency judgment. Now, will they? I don't know. But the fact is they can. Well, if they're doing a short sale, when you're working with a great agents like Gia and Grant, you can actually have that language removed. In addition to that, you can actually get it so the seller gets a check at closing. In addition to that, depending on their overall credit situation and if they've missed payments and all this rest of it, they could even hypothetically buy a house again immediately following the short sale. I mean, Gia, when you're in front of someone and you're explaining all these different options, what obstacles would they have or what reasons do they have not to list the house with you?
Actually, they don't. They actually get saucer-eyed and look at us and go, really? That can really happen? And I said, well, wouldn't you rather have some money in your pocket to walk away from your home, in a short sale situation and sell your home, and you have control of when you move and who you sell it to, rather than the bank taking it out from under you? And they all look at me and say, yes. I said, and wouldn't it be easier for you to be able to go and buy another house in another couple of years if that's what it takes? And they all look at me and say, yes. I said, well, then what are we waiting for? And usually at that point, we're already there with our tablet. They sign on our tablet, and it's a done deal.
Well, I hope everyone on this call wrote that script down.
Well,
that was a great
simple questions. It was two simple questions. And, Julie, I know you're getting ready for some questions of the agents that have entered into the webinar. But, Gia, when I talk with you guys, you and Grant, I feel energy. I feel excitement. I feel optimism. I feel that you guys aren't scared. You're excited. You're looking forward to this market as a huge opportunity for you to help people, and let's be honest, make a lot of money. How excited are you on a scale of 1 to 10 that you now have this knowledge and you're able to actually apply it, have scripts like that, and go in front of sellers? You've got to be pumped up every single day. How do you keep the motivation level that high?
A really good working relationship with my husband. He specializes in his end, and I specialize on mine, and we make a really good team. And the joy and that we keep in our personal life as well as in our professional life actually helps fuel that fire. And you said from a scale of 1 to 10, the way we feel, I'm going to say an 11. I very much love my husband. I love working with him. I know a lot of people are thinking, you guys have got to be crazy, a husband-wife team, that is in the same office all the time. You see each other 24/7. I can't imagine not working with him. He's an incredible guy, and he knows his stuff, and it's a joy to work and learn with him because we learn something new every single day, and that's the thing that makes it more fun.
Tim, can I interject? Because there's a concept that I'd like to bounce off everybody that I think is very relevant.
Grant, you better repay her a very nice compliment because she just gave you a very nice one. I don't know if you heard it or not.
I'm absolutely flattered, and my cheeks are red as a result, and it was our anniversary yesterday, so it's wonderful. I'm going to bring a concept out here, and, some people might have heard of this. It's called 2 and 2 equals 5, and it's not just, I'm not just talking monetarily, where you put $2 two people together, and you're more productive as a result. You've also look at the other side of the coin, which is, forming a team. You can accomplish so much more with somebody else than you can all by yourself, because at the end of the day, there's only so many working hours available to all of us. But if you can form a good team where people have their own skill set and they bring it to the team, you can accomplish 2 + 2 = 5. And I think that's really what Gia is talking about. That's what we've been able to do over the last 4 years. We each bring a different set of skills to the table, and it's worked for us. And if everybody sort of goes back to their offices and says, I really have been thinking about teaming up with somebody, maybe this is the call that sort of, takes you over that and makes you take that leap of faith, because it's worked for us. I mean, BPOs on one side, short sales on another, you really can, make huge strides.
Well, again, this goes, and Julie's got the questions queued up. The fact is that the market is presenting opportunities to all of us that are vastly superior than even the bubble. And there's agents out there, when Julie and I do speaking, we still run into agents that absolutely positively don't understand the fact that this is a better market than then, because there's sellers that absolutely positively need you. There's sellers, when Gia and Grant go out there, they're sellers that absolutely, unquestionably need what they have to offer. And there aren't any other realtors that are basically offering what they offer, because what Grant and Gia have done is taken the time to understand what this market has to offer, and their competition, if there is such a thing, really hasn't. So that's a huge opportunity. Knowledge is power. It's not about who you know in a market like this. It's about what you know. And then when you have that concept and when you've taken the time to learn the knowledge, you can expand. They can go and they can talk to a first-time seller in some low-end condo. They can walk into the biggest estate in their marketplace, and they have something that other agents don't have in terms of the confidence, in terms of the knowledge, in terms of the track record, and all of you can create the same thing. I heard Grant talk about the power of having consistent cash flow from BPOs. Everyone who's listening to this call, listen to this call again and do what they've done. That is the very basis of any modern real estate practice, is doing BPOs. You get better at the market, you get listing opportunities, you get consistent cash flow. What can be better than that? And then expand. And don't be intimidated by the fact you have to learn something. Be excited about the fact that you have so much to learn. So, Julie, you have a lot of questions, I think, or at least probably 5 or 6
I do.
different.
And, what I was thinking as we're wrapping this call up is that this type of thing gives our students and future students the unfair advantage against whatever competition is left out there, right? So I was thinking as Gio was speaking, and I was mentioning, hey, that's a great closing script. Gosh, I wish I had something in Florida to list with you guys, because you make it exciting. You give the prospects and your potential sellers hope, and that's perhaps one of the most important things in this market. So kudos to you guys. Let's see, a lot of questions about how to re-listen to this call. All you have to do is go to our blog, which is realestateinsidernews.com, and click on the Superstar bar at the top. It's a gray button, so not just this interview, but many other Superstar interviews. So that's for Sarah in Atlanta as well as many others. Now, just to clarify, back to the BPO topic, regarding Old Republic, there's no fee with them to do BPOs. There's a fee for training and certification for REOs. It's not required for BPO. So, again, you absolutely don't have to pay to be getting the BPO train on the tracks. Many people have been asking about those specific 4 companies. Don't get stuck on that. In the BPO cash flow class, Rodney Forbes has highlighted more than 40 companies, all of which have assignments to give, and we show you exactly how to work with them. Rodney does a company of the week each and every week, so you really have no end in sight of BPO work. And that class is just $97 a month. You can pay for it with 2 BPOs. So back to you, Tim. Just wanted to clarify a little.
And no other questions? Anything else that you want to ask before we wrap?
Let's
Julie?
see.
Somebody
was asking. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Someone was asking about how to craft a hardship letter required for the file when it is a strategic short sale. I think a lot of agents get hung up on that since it's still required in the file. How do you deal with that?
Gia?
Gia, well, what we actually did was in this particular instance, it wasn't a strategic short sale, but he laid it on the line. He also had some other issues. He actually did have a couple of issues that caused him a bit of a heartache, but he was straightforward with the bank, said, I can't continue to carry this this property. It's either that or I'll give you back the keys. And most of the time the bank doesn't want to take the keys back to the property. They'd rather it sold, and do it that direction. But he was straight up and honest. I think every circumstance is a little different. You can't say on a strategic default or strategic short sale that there has to be a form short sale letter. Everything's a little different, and I would be, I don't think it would be right for me to say, oh, yeah, you have to say it like this, you have to say it like that. As I said, circumstances for everybody are different. But you need to be straight up.
Well, I mean, exactly what you're saying. And in some cases where the seller has a lot of other assets, I think of actually a coaching client that we just helped do a short sale for a seller that had something like $3 million and like $1.5 million in liquid assets or something, and they filled out the financial statement and the bank saw it. And the short, I think, if I remember correctly, was $600,000 or $700,000, something like that. Well, the seller could have just written a check, sure, but the seller also could have just waited out the foreclosure and just given the house back. And so what the bank did, knowing the seller had assets, but at the same time the seller wanted to be able to buy another house relatively quick, hadn't missed any payments. Now I'm giving everyone a lot of detail here, but these are all important facts. The seller literally wrote a check to the bank for $20,000, and the bank let the short sale settle. No deficiency judgment. Of course, in California, there wouldn't have been anyway. And the seller's now positioned and is out there looking for another house right now. Those are the types of things that if you guys aren't doing and if you don't understand, you absolutely positively need to really get connected with us, and so many of you need to get reconnected with us. So Gia and Grant, I mean, you guys really are the prototypical realtors going forward. You truly are. You embrace the fact that the real estate business is not about lack, it's about opportunity. And I think you really you understand the fact that it cannot just be about taking listings. It cannot just be about working with buyers. You have to have a whole bunch of different tools in your toolbox. Grant, Gia, I want you guys each to maybe think about this question and then pass the information along what you actually feel. So realtors out there right now, hundreds listening, thousands will be listening in replay, sometimes thousands and thousands, just depending. What would you like to tell them? What would have been something that you would have liked someone to have told you guys back in, say, 2008 and 2009 as you were trying to build your success story or your comeback story? What would have been something that you would have wished someone would have told you to really let you know that you were on the right path with, doing the types of things you guys are doing now?
I would have, I'm going to jump in, Gia, if that's okay.
Yep.
If somebody would have said to me, here's a mentor, go and fill your brain with the knowledge that they have, and in 6 months you're going to take yourself from this spot and elevate yourself to this spot, I would have jumped at the chance. We didn't get that. Nobody really had that sort of information to share with us, so we had to sort of roll up our sleeves, suck it up, and learn the hard way. Now it's very different. Now everybody has information to be able to share with you. I mean, the service and the products that you offer are ideal for those people that said, you know what, I don't know enough about this marketplace, and I need to become an expert. And in order to be able to become an expert, you've got to learn. You've got to be able to roll up those sleeves and say, I'm not too old to learn new tricks. And that's really what this market is about. You've got to reinvent yourself, and you've got to be able to understand what's going on, what the banks are doing, how to get financing, who's got it, what the programs are that are available. And you can't do it overnight. You've actually got to take a course, ask questions, and as I say, find a mentor. Find the people that have that knowledge and pick their brain. That's really what you need to be doing right now.
Gia, anything come to mind with that question?
Actually, I'm going to agree with everything that Grant said. The one thing I will tell you is that what I would have loved for somebody to have done for us when we were at the bottom of, starting to reinvent ourselves is that somebody would put an arm around us and say, it's going to be okay. You're going to be fine. You're going to be able to succeed. Just, move forward with it. From a woman's perspective, I have a tendency to be a little more emotional than Grant. Grant just focuses and he takes the train and keeps chugging straight ahead. I think women have a tendency to worry a little bit, so I always had that worry of, oh gosh, are we going to be okay? And I just kept my head down and kept chugging along as best I could, and it turned out to be a success, which was great. But I think that for me, the emotion of, oh my goodness, was what I think I would have liked somebody to have said, you're going to be just fine.
Well, so collectively, that's what you guys have just done. You've taken, thousands of agents in your arms and basically said, hey guys, guess what? It's going to be just fine. I mean, that's what
Correct.
You've just done. So I appreciate that very much, Gia. And that's a driving force for Julie and I too. And, I think really everyone, you got to take information like this. Don't be skeptics. Don't question it. Don't waste time trying to analyze it, honestly. Just do it. The secret to long-term success in any market is the actions that you take. Even if you have some false starts, it matters not. You've got to just choose a direction and just drill down and focus on it and become a master of it. And Gia, Grant, I mean, there's a lot of agents out there that are sort of posing as short sale experts, or they're acting like they have this information, and then they're passing along half information or bad information to sellers. There's a series of questions I see in the webinar where people are asking stuff along those lines. How do you position yourself? And I know this is a little bit out of place, but again, these are questions that are coming in, so I want to address this one. When you guys are against, I don't want to say against because that's a competitive type question, and the fact is with your knowledge base, competition really isn't that major of an issue. But when you're dealing with a marketplace that and owners that are looking for answers, and you have agents out there that are giving non-complete or frankly false information, how do you go about positioning yourselves without making yourself looking like you're grinding down the other agent?
Can I step in, Gia?
Yep.
It's a great question, Tim. Because, and we've all seen this. I mean, I'm sure everybody's going to be nodding their head when I say, all you've got to do is take a look at the listings on the MLS and just see how easy it is for somebody to drop the name CDPE and think, let the world think that they actually know what they're talking about. And it's really not the case. I mean, just so everybody knows, Gio and I don't even have CDPE designation. We've learned this ourselves. I don't need 4 letters after my name to be able to sit down with a consumer that's in distress and be able to explain to them what this market's about and what they can do and help solve their problem. I think if you focus on putting information into your listings that sets you apart, that helps people to see that you really do know what you're talking about, I think that actually helps because you'd be surprised. And in actual fact, you're probably not surprised because you're seeing this as well as we are. When we deal with buyers, they've already identified the properties they want to see. They've already seen your listings, essentially. I mean, we get it every single day. People call up and say, I found this, I found this, I found this. They're already seeing the information that you're already putting down. But to go back to the initial question, CDPE course, these things are great in terms of learning new things. But, just having the letters after your name doesn't necessarily make you an expert. It's really what you say and what you know.
Right. So, there's a number of other folks that are in the short sale training space, and, we always take the high road on all of that. We're the only ones that are offering a training program. Ours is a 12-month coaching program. You guys know a couple of the coaches very well, McClintocks. And the thing that really makes our information and the way we provide it different is because, frankly, it is an ongoing process, and that's really the key, is you can't just expect to basically get your information in a couple capsules and then expect you're somehow going to be able to hit the marketplace with any sort of real high level of knowledge. But with that said, any sort of short sale designation, any sort of short sale training or information is a great place to get started. And I 100% commend agents who have taken the opportunity to have any sort of basis of a short sale education because that's a good first place to start. And if you're ready to take your business to the next level, then obviously you have to seek higher levels of information. You have to figure out really how to do this in volume. It's a mindset right now, and this is a mindset that so many top producers have right now. Short sales aren't just a tool. They are a tool that you have to know how to have in your toolbox. But what short sales are, and they're an expanding opportunity, they truly are. You can design a whole real estate practice around BPOs and short sales and REOs as well. You can build we have lots of agents now that are selling hundreds and hundreds of homes per year just off those 3 primary spokes. And, of course, what Gia said earlier was true, too, centers of influence and past clients. So, guys, expand your mind. See the opportunity this market truly has, and you will not have a single day of feeling discouraged. You will not have a single day of feeling fear as long as you're willing to actually put one foot in front of the other and take action. Get your information, get started, take it to the next level, and be proud of the services that you can offer to your marketplace, and embrace the fact that, frankly, this is the opportunity this market has to offer, so take advantage of it, and there's nothing wrong with that. So, Gia and Grant, I want to sincerely thank you for being today's superstars. You guys are an inspiration. I can tell you right now, Julie was telling me some of the positive compliments and comments that were in the webinar. You've motivated a lot of people. I really appreciate that. In this marketplace, we need more Gia and Grants, and I really appreciate you in Florida. I really appreciate what you're doing in your marketplace. And thank you for being this week's Harris Real Estate University Superstars.
It's our pleasure. Thank you very much for having us.
Have a great weekend, guys, and happy birthday, Grant, and happy anniversary to the two of you.
Thank you so much for having us. It's been a wonderful experience,
Bye-bye.
and hopefully we've been able to share a lot of good information with everybody. Take care, everyone.
You have. You absolutely have. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Bye, guys. You too. Bye.
Bye.